What's up, party people? Today's another episode of the Who Asked You podcast. I'm your host, Studi Too Groovy, and we have a very special episode today. We have two very important individuals coming on the podcast. They're running for different public offices in Genesee County. So I'm going to introduce them, then they're going to talk a little bit about themselves, and then we're going to get into the topics. You know how we go. We deep dive into information, and trust me, you guys are really going to like this. So let me bring my amazing guest in. We have Attorney Trishelle C. Young.
Hello.
And Police Chief Phil Hart. How are y'all doing today?
Excellent. Great. How are you?
I am okay. I am doing fine. I'm doing amazing. So we're going to start off with you, Trishelle. Could you please tell the people a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So first, let me say to you, Studi Too Groovy, there's got to be some history behind that name and that.
Yes.
Okay. So at some point, you're going to have to share that story because I'm really interested in knowing how you developed such a name. So,
okay.
That being said, again, I'm Attorney Trishelle Young. I was born and raised right here in Flint, Michigan. I have 3 children. All of my children graduated from high school in Genesee County. They're all in college seeking their degrees. My son he has his bachelor's degree, his master's degree, and he's currently in law school seeking his law degree. And then I have a daughter that's graduating from Texas Southern University this year. And then my youngest daughter is at the University of Louisville in Kentucky, and she's just starting her 3rd year of college. So education is very, very important to me and to my family. And I have to say, when they brought your podcast to my attention, I went back and looked at some of your podcasts, and then the one that really impressed me was the one on financial literacy. Because so many of us don't appreciate what a good credit score can do,
Right.
And so just implanting that knowledge at your age, nobody told me about the significance of my credit, when I was younger, when you really can make an impact and get things done, when you can go to the bank and get a loan for whatever business you want to start, versus messing it up with cell phones and, small things that start to affect your credit negatively. So I commend you, for educating our community because far too often we just don't get that knowledge, and knowledge is power. So as long as we continue to put it out there, it's all good. But back to me, I'm a former city attorney for the city of Flint. I've been practicing law for 24 years. I've been doing this for quite a while. I'm a U.S. Army airborne veteran. I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Ooh, I had to throw that plug in.
What I did. Do your thing.
And, working in this community for a long time. I'm a member of Mallory Van Dyne and Scott Bar Association, which is the Black bar here in Genesee County. I've worked with the water coalitions here since 2015. I was the only attorney that filed a lawsuit to force the city and the state to stop using the Flint River as a primary source of drinking water when they were telling us it's okay. I'm currently still involved in multiple litigation at local, state, and federal levels because we're fighting for justice. We were poisoned at the hands of the people who are in a position to protect us, to care for us, to provide for us. And so we're seeking justice, and that's been going on for the past 5 years. So, I'm used to an uphill battle. I don't mind the fight. I don't mind the climb. And, this is my next journey. I think I was set up for a position as Genesee County prosecutor because of my mindset, because of my disposition, because of my upbringing, and really because of my community. We have been beat down for so long by so many. It's time for us to rise. And the only way we can really do that is by exercising our voice, by voting and putting people in positions that represent you, that reflect you, that will bring some diversity to the table, because right now we are not being represented downtown.
That's correct. Yes. And I think in many areas where not only just Black individuals, but like-minded individuals, period, we are too far stretched in between. We don't have positions where our collective mind can flourish. You know,
Absolutely.
it's always like we are always the minority in those types of thoughts. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. Phil, can we get a little bit of history on you?
Certainly. I was born in Flint and have actually moved out, went to Mount Morris to school. I have returned to Flint and have been here for the last 30 years as a resident. I have been in law enforcement for 37 years. Started out going through the Flint Police Academy and worked up on the north end of the county at the Clio Vienna Police Department, then got into the state police, did just under 27 with them and retired as the post commander out of Flint. I then was a jail administrator here in Genesee County. And for a couple of years after that, I went to Saginaw County, was 5 years as the undersheriff. Left there to run my campaign. And when Mayor Neely won, he asked me as a favor to help him out until he could get someone to fill in completely. And so I am subsequently the chief and have been so since November of last year.
Wow.
Education, I agree with Trishelle. Education is paramount. I tell people that are looking to get into law enforcement, get educated. It doesn't have to be criminal justice, but get a degree. You need to have a degree. Education is never wasted. And I have a bachelor's degree from Spring Arbor. I'm about halfway through a master's program, and all my stuff is in business, which is quite helpful at my level as an administrator in law enforcement. Been through police staff and command school at Northwestern School in Chicago, and I am also a graduate of the FBI National Academy, and I've been through the Secret Service School of Public Protection. So in the interim, I have worked a couple of years with the FBI as a public corruptions task force officer, looking to take police officers and anyone else of public demeanor that's doing wrong and remove them from their jobs and try to get them the punishment that they deserve. Was successful at that, and actually had fun doing that. The reason that I'm looking to run for sheriff is just as my background. I think there are a lot of things that are not being done correctly, and I'm looking to go in and change the mold. It's been the way it has been right now for the last 20 years, and it's time for a change. We need other voices heard, and that's one of the things that I do. I like the transparency. I want to have contact with everyone else. I can't do my job if I don't know what everyone is looking for their service and protection from the police. So I like to have the open communication. It's helpful to me.
And Phil, before we get into the questions, I have to say, I really, really, really appreciate that sentiment, because accountability is the first step of change. And the fact that you are a part of some organizations that check, because it's not a secret that there are some supremacy groups that have infiltrated almost the backbone of our country, Yes. So the fact that it is being acknowledged and something is being done about it, I applaud that so much. So I have to just put that on wax. I have to put that down. That is amazing.
Thank you.
That is amazing. So, and then you brought up some things that we are definitely going to touch on. So and I see the people are coming in. So without further ado, Trishelle, you're going to go first. I'm going to ask you some questions. Then Phil, I got some questions for you. And then I have some panel questions. And when we get to the panel questioning, I'm going to bring in Empowered and Motivation LLC so they can tap in because, they help put this event together. And I want to give credit where credit is due. So, and Blue Regard says peace to our guests. So that's for y'all. Yeah. Okay. So Trishelle.
Yes.
Or is it okay if I call you that just by your first name?
Absolutely. That's fine.
Okay.
If I can call you Studi.
Oh yeah,
call me Trishelle.
most definitely. Like I'm getting that copyrighted soon. That's good. But,
I think you're safe. I think you're really safe.
They just say that is like ultra original.
Yeah.
Okay. What is a prosecutor's job?
So that's a great question because a lot of people really don't understand or appreciate the significance of this position. You know, this office was established according to the Michigan Constitution, and it's responsible for the prosecution of violations of state criminal law in the entire county. The prosecutor is the chief law enforcement officer in the county for all criminal matters before the district court, the circuit court, probate court, appellate courts, federal courts, and anywhere the county has an interest or a party at stake, the prosecutor has a role. The prosecutor decides what charges, if any, a person could face when something happens. They also decide what offers, if any, will be made to a person. They decide whether.
Oh, she froze.
And then they're also the person that determines what dispositions, what alternative dispositions can be made available to a defendant. So, you know, for example, we have things like drug court, mental health court, veterans court, and then some things for young people like HIDA, which is Home Use Trainee Act, for if it's over 17 but under 21, because we recognize that young people do dumb things sometimes, and that they shouldn't have to pay for it for the rest of their life. And so, but it's the prosecutor who really decides who is going to be granted access to those alternative types of dispositions. And even after a defendant's case is over, let's say they ended up pleading to a felony, now 5 years later, they want to apply for an expungement and get the felony off of their record. The prosecutor still plays a role in whether or not the judge should grant that request to remove that felony. And so they are the gatekeeper of justice. And so as the gatekeeper, our current prosecutor, you know, he's just either been sleeping on the job or is just falling short of his duties to be fair as a fair minister of equal justice. And in this community, with what's going on across the country and in our backyard, it's just time for change.
And yeah, I wanted to, that is very important because it's like there's such a disproportionate amount of Black individuals who get arrested.
Absolutely.
It's just like it's hard to ignore, you know, and pretend.
But you know, they've been doing it for a long, long time.
Yes. It says the prosecutor is a tribunal before the village decision. Crown G says very true. And hello, Eastwood. Welcome to the channel. Okay, so my next question for you, Trishelle, is what are some of the challenges you expect to face during your stint as the prosecutor if you win?
So that's a really loaded question because, you know, the first thing that has to be done is there needs to be a review of the staff, the positions, the policies, the budget, the union contracts, the alternative disposition programs that are available. And one of the major concerns that I have right now with the current is practice overcharging and unfair plea bargaining. So those practices have greatly contributed to the mass incarceration problem that we have here in Genesee County. You know, the Genesee County Jail has a maximum capacity of 580 inmates. And last year, they were over capacity 10 out of 12 months, averaging over 700 inmates. And the jail stay was 170 days. And 93% of them have not been convicted of a crime. So there's an abuse of the cash bond system, which really basically, in my opinion, amounts to a poor person tax, because I know people who've sat in jail because they couldn't post $100 bond. While others, you know, they're going to post that bond and be on with their merry little business, you know, as if nothing ever happened. So it really ends up being a penalty for poverty, which is a problem because Genesee County has the highest unemployment rate in the state of Michigan. So, you know, I expect to face challenges, and I'll absolutely form a conviction integrity unit because we need to review some prior convictions that have happened under this prosecutor's leadership that may have been obtained in violation of a person's constitutional rights. I believe there are people sitting in jail right now that don't belong there. And the current prosecutor has admitted that there's been some abuse of some state law that resulted in profiling people in certain areas, like the north end of Flint. And they use, like the jail law, they were using that as a pretext to search people and, and approach people. And then when they ran or when they didn't want to cooperate, they were automatic suspects. And so now they were treating people differently and more aggressively. So he recognizes that that was not constitutional, and he doesn't want to charge any more cases that start like that. But I'm asking, how many people are sitting in prison right now because of cases that started like that? And if we're really going to be about justice, then we need to go back and review those cases and make it right. So,
correct.
And I think 15 years, and he's about convictions and incarceration. I'm about real justice and rehabilitation. So those are some of the challenges that I expect to face.
And can I ask you a question to branch off that's not on the itinerary?
Sure.
Do you think that monetary compensation is enough of a sorry for people who deal with that or have false, drugs planted on them or overly abusive amount of time given? Do you think that money is enough? Because
absolutely not.
Take time, you can't get your time back.
Right. And therein lies the problem, so how do you really make somebody whole? But I will say money is a good start. So don't get me twisted, because the least they can do is compensate you for the violations and the time that you'll never get back. But there needs to be, in my opinion, accountability by the people who abuse the process.
Hold on, let's wait until she's back. While she's frozen,
the village to even make that happen. So there has to be accountability. If it's so easy for you to lock me up, and then when you realize you were wrong, I think it's fair play that you get locked up and you do some time. And maybe you can appreciate what it means to take somebody's liberty away.
That is correct. Phil, could you expound on that? On that sentiment, do you think that monetary is enough?
Oh, no, there's no way. I agree with what Trishelle said. I mean, it's a start, but you take away someone's life, how do you ever repay that? It's impossible. The things that are missed, the milestones, the great big events, just the opportunity for your potential, it's gone, and there's no way to reimburse them. I mean, money, like she said, it's a start. It will get you something, but inside, there's still going to be a big hole left where you missed out on life.
That's correct. That is correct. Okay. So, Trishelle.
Yes, sir.
As someone with a military background, how has that experience shaped your view on criminality?
Wow, tremendously. As a U.S. Army veteran, I served in the Army as a lawyer, which they call JAG officers, and I'm airborne, which means I jumped out of planes for fun. And it's just, it's a soldier in me, and the primary things that I learned in the military were discipline, service and sacrifice. So I know you get out of things what you put into it, which is why I'm not afraid. I've never been afraid to put the work in. So I also know, when we were training, it really didn't matter what your race was. At the end of the day, what we understood is that I better have your back and you better have mine. And so race was, and when I was in, a non-factor for us, because it was about just becoming one and taking care of each other and satisfying the mission that we were, whatever mission we were given. So, I understand I'm blessed to be a blessing, and to whom much is given, much. So my military experience has really, really equipped me for a position such as the Genesee County prosecutor. I've served, I mentioned earlier, the Flint City Attorney for 5 years, where I was the chief law enforcement officer for the city of Flint. And I successfully ran that office, and not only reduced the amount of litigation that was going on, but was able to prevent some people who wanted to sue from suing just by communicating, collaborating, and making sure people had a voice in the conversation. Because all too often, the people who are really impacted by policies, they never have a seat at the table. And that's
Right.
what we need to change, and like dealing with the Flint River as the drinking source. It's just, you have to get in the battle and you have to fight. And unfortunately, I'm just used to fighting, and the military has prepared me that there is an art to war. You don't just go in swinging. You have to strategize. You have to look at it from different angles. You have to partner with someone. And at some point, you may have to realize that the enemy of your enemy is your friend. So it's a lot of planning and preparation that goes into that. But the military has really given me a solid foundation, and I'm forever grateful to be a U.S. Army veteran.
And thank you for your service.
You're very welcome.
So, in your opinion, what are the factors that play into the unsafe environment that Flint has become? And Phil, if you want to hop in after she gives her explanation on this question, you are fine to do that.
So for me, let's start with racism. The city of Flint and Genesee County have both recently declared racism as a public health issue. In Genesee County, the highest excess death rates exist for African Americans at every stage in life. It is a crisis that affects large numbers of people of color and poor people, and it threatens our long-term health outcomes, and it does require some major solutions. So, the county commissioners just issued a proclamation that said they are working to create an equity and justice-oriented organization. Equity simply means fairness. So to me, that in and of itself is an acknowledgement that the system has been inherently biased and unfair against Black and brown people. Now, dealing with racism, you got to add the element of poverty, because almost half of the people in the city of Flint are living in poverty. Think about that, from a city that once boasted the highest median income thanks to General
Sorry, it does that sometimes.
But what amount is considered under the poverty level for Genesee County?
Yeah, you were kind of lagging
going out
on your last. Yeah.
Okay, so I was saying that there are nearly 43,000 people in the city of Flint that live below the poverty level. And I was asking if you knew what that number was for the poverty level.
No, I don't.
So that number is 11,880. So that means 43,000, almost half of the people in Flint make less than $12,000.
Yeah.
That is not, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, you could even see it, like there's like pockets of the city where you know that there's money, and then everything else is just trash, graffiti, like service jobs, as far as like unless it's a corner store or a fast food restaurant, you're not gonna see a business.
Or a liquor store.
Yeah, or a liquor store. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, you're gonna find liquor stores on almost every corner.
Right. And Flint has had the highest rate of childhood poverty. An estimated 58% of Flint residents under 18 live below the poverty line. And I think, your question was what factors play into it. A lack of city planning, a lack of representation at the table, a lack of economic diversity, a lack of economic people really left Flint and went, to Grand Blanc, to Flint Township.
Yeah.
And then obviously with that, they pulled their children out of the Flint school systems. So now the money that goes into the school systems follows that child, and those schools are flourishing, and the Flint schools, have plummeted.
Oh yeah.
Almost non-existent almost at this point. Charter schools are taking over, and all of the other areas are taking over. Mm-hmm. And that's a challenge that we're going to have to deal with, because, you're adding a lack of an appropriate education to poverty and to racism, and that creates basically a recipe for failure. And I think that's what the criminal justice system has been adding insult to that injury by taking you out of those neighborhoods and now locking you up, and the jail becomes a revolving door. There's no rehabilitation. It's all punitive, and then they hit you with the fines and the costs, and so
that they know you can't afford.
Hole
Yeah.
that you so when you get that systemic process of incarcerating Black men and then hemming them up with those felony convictions, not only have you taken them out the homes for a substantial period of time, but when they come back, you've created so many obstacles and hurdles because now they have to check the box. And when they check that box saying that they are a convicted felon, it impacts the type of job they can get, where they can live, whether they qualify for student loans so they can go to college, and all that plays a role in Flint having an unsafe environment. Not to mention the drug trafficking that's going on, because you tell me when you've heard of the county or the city making a major bust from people bringing the drugs into our community. You don't hear that. What you hear is, we arrested 3 corner drug pushers who are out there selling nickel and dime bags, but you're not getting to the source or the root of the issue. So to me, you are never really trying to solve the problem. That war on crime was just a war on our kind. They weren't trying to do anything to make our lives better. So we have to step up and go into these positions where we can really impact change. And that's why I'm running for county prosecutor.
That was an amazing. As you were talking, it was so many points that was popping up in my head. Phil, would you like to expound on that, branching off of?
Oh, certainly.
What you said?
I agree with Rochelle. I mean, there's a big issue with Flint with the socioeconomics and the racism that comes about because of that. You can't get ahead when you go to prison and you come out and you've got, like she said, check the box. How do you go to school? How do you get a job? I've talked to a lot of young men lately who have been telling me, I'd like to work. I as soon as I check that box, they discount me and send me away. And and it's, if you look at how our criminal justice system is supposed to work, you talk about double jeopardy. That's double jeopardy. You're going to keep paying for the rest of your life for something that you already paid your debt on that and then some. And so now you're back and you're going to pay the rest of your life. And then we stand around and wonder, why is there recidivism? Why wouldn't there be? What are you going to do? They do what they can to take care of their families. I've talked to a lot of young men and women, and that's exactly what they've told me. This is why I'm doing this, to take care of my family. Well, you have to hand it to them. At least they're not running away and just saying that's their problem. But we need to help them to fix that. They don't need to be out there doing it. It's not safe for them. It's not safe for us. There are much better ways. And for every dollar that we're spending on this incarceration, we could much better use it on education, I think.
Absolutely.
And in actual rehabilitation. What I wanted to ask, what I wanted to say to both of you is, do you think, and this is not on the list, but do you think that outside of violent crimes and like sexual crimes and all those types of things and trafficking and like not drug dealing, but like actually being the supplier, outside of those, shouldn't felons, after they get out of jail or prison, that's their sentence, that's done, right? That it should be that way, right?
You would think,
because you already you got taken out of society. You should have been rehabilitated, got some type of skill, and now you should be able to rebuild your life.
Studi, what? Are you speaking idealistically? Because that's not realistic. I mean, seriously. Listen, when they put these men in prison, this is prison. That's why you see so much privatization of prisons. It's a business.
Modern day slavery.
Modern day slavery, and they get paid pennies on the dollar, for all of that manpower. It's the new Jim Crow. If you just step back and see what's going on, it's the design they had was just amazing.
Yeah.
From day one. They went, when they had to get rid of slavery, they came up with another plan, and it has continued to morph into a different name, but it's the same game.
But see, I think that the American people need to reclaim our constitutional rights and understand that we're the ones that make those power. Like we have the power to change it. change
And
it
how
up.
do we do that?
And we kind of gave it up. I think collectively understanding where our actual power lies and stop letting people come up on podiums and tell us what we want to hear.
Hello.
And hold them accountable for every checkpoint and everything that they said during their running.
Mm-hmm.
Did you do this? No. Did you do this? No. Then you got to go. Like there should be a time limit.
Yes.
For how long an official stays in their position without doing exactly what they said they were going to do.
Well, you know what? There is a time limit. If the people would exercise their right,
and we don't know that. That's what I'm saying. Like,
if the yes, absolutely, I agree. But for far too often, people just have no clue how people are suffering downtown. So when you talk to a lot of Black folks, they don't want to come downtown. But if you look at where the economic investment is, it's in downtown.
That's coming up.
Okay. All right. I'll stop there.
Okay. I like you. Like, yeah. Okay. What policy changes could city officials and law enforcement make to build a better relationship between the people of the community and those that govern them?
This for me?
Yes, for you first, and then Phil, you can hop in if you have.
So for me, we simply have to do things differently. And when I say different, if it was up to me, I'd throw the whole system away, because we know it's inherently racist. We know it was built on getting as much as you can for free off of a certain part of the community. And so it's not fair when you look at the foundation of it. And to me, we got to shake that whole foundation and change, which is why I'm running on a platform of community prosecution. And that just means in order to improve public safety, we have to enhance the quality of life for all residents and solve the problems surrounding criminal activity by using a long-term proactive partnership between the prosecutor's office, the law enforcement agencies, the public and the private organizations, and the people. We got to bring residents into this, because they're the ones who knows what's working and what's not working, and there's often too far a disconnect between what we think is great and how it's actually impacting the people. So together, if we build a coalition, we can more effectively determine the roots of criminal behavior so that we can deal with them, and then we prevent that recidivism rate from going, higher and higher, and we build a safer future and a safer community. Right. I'm also supportive of restorative justice. Justice requires balance for victims, not just prosecution of offenders. And restorative justice offers an innovative approach to criminal prosecution by bringing offenders and their victims together. Depending on the crime, you can't always do that. But when it's possible, you bring them together to share their experiences, to discuss the harm inflicted, to hear from the victim. You give the victim a voice, to create a consensus on how you begin to repair the harm. A lot of times, I'm a criminal defense attorney. So, I represent people who've been accused of crimes. And a lot of times when they hear the victim say, you don't understand, what you did when you did that. You don't understand how that impacted me. You don't understand how I wasn't able to work after that, how I never felt safe again, how I don't go out at night anymore. You don't understand what your tenets helped me in my lifetime. And when people can start to connect those dots, we can start to embrace that restorative justice type of future, and we start to mend and make people whole again. And one of my primary focuses is the juveniles, the youth that get caught in this system, because right now they're just being thrown in, charged like adults, treated like criminals. There's no rehabilitation. And this prosecutor has a practice. He's charged more youth as adults than any other prosecutor in the state of Michigan. So he's charging them as adults. And what he does when he does that is he takes that potential for rehabilitation off the table. Because when you put them in the adult system, that's just meant for punishment. When you keep them in the juvenile system, that's where you determine what that kid's potential is. You don't know what some of these kids are going through at their home life. Families are broken. Some of these kids have to work to pay the bills. Some of the parents aren't parenting. Some of these kids are being bullied, so there's a lot behind when kids do what they do. And we're not taking the time to figure out how we can help. So we put this child in a better place. And so I want to develop opportunities for treatment, for diversion, and for positive reinforcement, as well as rehabilitation. And we create these community alternatives to jail and the prison so we can significantly reduce the number of children behind attorneys and judges and law enforcement personnel. We go into the elementary schools and we start to mentor these kids at a very early age. And what that does is that first interaction with lawyers and judges and police becomes a positive interaction. And for the police side of it, they get to see, wow, this kid is smart. This kid has potential. Maybe they'll be likely to pull the trigger so quickly when they know that, I've met this kid. I know this kid's mother. So did I lose you, Studi? Your mic is muted.
No, I'm listening. I can hear you.
Okay. All right. So anyways, I was just saying mentorship is a big part of what I want to incorporate because I think, that's missing out right now.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like there's a lot of psychological damaging that's going on in our community. There is a lot of health problems that are ignored because most of our, our food affects our mood, our thought patterns, our thought processes. So when there's a corner store or a liquor store on every corner, our diet becomes snack foods, pops, all that type of stuff. So not only are we living unhealthy, but we're chemically, distorting ourselves.
And we're unbalanced.
We're very unbalanced. Yes. We cannot live off sugar snacks and Legionnaire water,
And I was just getting ready to say, add the lead poisoning to that that you just had.
Okay, I'm just gonna ask y'all because this is for later when I was gonna address have an open question, but it keeps being brought up. Do you guys think? And then Phil, I'll let you answer the last question as well. Do you think that the lead poisoning is a big factor in the mentality and the psychosis that a lot of people have in Flint, Michigan? And do you think that factor is currently being ignored right now?
Phil, do you want to stab or you want me? When I go, it's hard for me to stop.
Yeah. No, yeah, I appreciate that, Trisha. Yeah, I think absolutely it is a factor. And I think there are things that are going to come up in the future that we aren't even prepared for yet. We have no idea. We don't know what the final outcome will be with this lead poisoning. We have no idea where this could end. And we already have people that are in kind of sensitive, dangerous situations with mental health. And it's unfortunate that that was stopped so many years ago with these facilities to help. And now what happens is people are crying out for assistance. They're crying out for help, and they get totally ignored until the point in time that they commit something that rises to a criminal level and then comes before law enforcement and the prosecutors to take action on. And instead of, like Trishelle was saying earlier, let's get them some help. Let's get them some counseling. Let's do something that we can do beyond just putting someone in jail. I mean, locking someone in a little cell, I really don't know how that's supposed to help anything. That's purely punishment. That's not going to fix anyone. That's not going to help them come out with a better mindset and a more positive light on what needs to be done for them to prosper in the world. It's all backwards. There's no way that we can possibly come out with a positive effect at the end by doing this. And unfortunately, it's not just the water. It's exactly what you were saying there, Studi, about, we have so many of the liquor stores across our community in Flint. And it's exactly that. They go out and grab something quick and it's not nutritious. And if there are stores available, there are a lot of the fast food restaurants that, although very good, not all that nutritious.
Right.
You can get some that's a little better than others, but still not as good as a home cooked meal. And again, if you're in a economically deprived setting, how do you get the food that you need to cook for your family? And again, we circle back to people who have drug problems, which I mean, to me, that's a disease. You've got drug and alcohol problems. It's tantamount to the mental health problems. And again, how can someone who's got those issues, how can they take care of a situation? How do they take care of a family? They're barely taking care of themselves, if they are at all. And so it's a downward spiral, and until somebody steps in, and that's what we're trying to do, and stop this and say, hey, look what's going on here. These changes need to happen. It may take a while, but at least, by gosh, you need to pay attention and start doing what's right here, instead of allowing what's been going on for years and years and saying, well, it doesn't impact me, so I'm not that concerned. And like I've told so many other people, that can change at the drop of a hat. And tomorrow it could be me. And so I need to do something now to make sure. Another thing Trishelle said before was the open dialogue with the community. How do I know exactly what the community wants of me if I don't talk to them? I don't know what they want from their law enforcement officials unless I ask them. I know the world from my point of view, and it's definitely different than most of the people that I see in the city of Flint. I have been fortunate in my life. I haven't had a lot of the adversity that many people have, but I am more than willing to sit with them, talk to them, and they have ideas I know I don't have, because I see the world from my point of view. And until I have everybody's input, or at least the majority of this input, how do I make wise decisions that impact a lot of people beyond myself? And I don't think it's fair for me to sit in a chair and say, this is what we're going to do, without asking for someone else's input to tell me whether or not that's helpful to them or hurtful, because I might not even see the hurt side of it.
That's called white privilege, Phil.
I know.
But for you to break it down like that and to take accountability for that, I really, that is an amazing first step, because one of the biggest problems that I see is a lot of denial and a lot of uncomfortability of the truth. It is what it is, because it's different. Like, I think white people should learn how to take their emotions and stop feeling attacked and listen sometimes, because it's not, we know that it's not all white people. We know that it's a systematic issue, but whenever a Black person says something about racism, they take it as if it's a personal attack. And unless you are racist, how can you take that personal? Unless you're the one doing the actions, how can you take it personal?
Well, you become that racist, is what you do when you won't let someone discuss with you in a frank and open, honest discussion what the issues are, and you're going to say that that's offensive to you. Well, my goodness, then you are the problem. You're not the resolve. You're the problem.
That prime example is when we say Black Lives Matter and they come back with All Lives Matter.
Yeah. It's like, it should not, like, okay, I was just having this discussion earlier, right, with my brother. I was saying that white power does not offend me, because you should have pride in your own people. You should have pride about your history, the things that you've done, your abilities, right? So if I say Black power, Black pride, that should not affect you. As long as we aren't being violent towards each other, as long as the systematic foot on our necks is off.
All right, George.
Yeah, like okay, that's like a physical representation of what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
If it's not, it does not hurt me to hear somebody have pride for themselves. And I think that narrative needs to change. We should be proud of our heritage, proud of what we can do, proud of our country, proud of our city, proud of our state, proud of our neighbors. I don't see the issue with having pride for yourself. I just don't. It's hard pressed.
So just real briefly, to comment on what you were just saying, I think when I hear white power or white pride, I don't hear what you hear, because to me, I hear them saying, I am superior and you are inferior. That's what I hear when I hear somebody says.
Okay, can I ask you this question though?
Absolutely.
Is that self-inferiority though? Because if I tell you I ran 50 miles and you only ran 20, shouldn't you be proud that you ran at all? Like, shouldn't it be like just I did what I did and this is what I do?
But it's based on a historical perspective of what that means. It's like the Confederate flag. The Confederate flag for a lot of African Americans symbolizes slavery and involuntary servitude. But for a lot of Southerners, they say, oh, we're just proud of our heritage. How you interpret something is important, because my perception is my reality. So
that's correct.
If you know that the term that you are using historically has a racist,
connotation.
Yes, and you're gonna stir some things up, like I'm seeing more and more videos where white people are calling black people the N-word, and black people just not taking it anymore. It's just it's a
I always say this: everybody has free will, and there's consequences for your free will. That's what I say. Like, you can't control somebody else's reaction to what you do. So, I mean, I guess that's my
certain things. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. But you also know certain things are provocative. So if you're trying to provoke someone and you succeed, don't turn around and cry about it.
Yeah, then your consequences. Then if somebody go upside your head, like, you can't be like, oh, all I did was say N words, or like, okay, like, yeah, you got free will, you got freedom of speech, but there's also freedom of consequences as well.
That's it.
So, my next question is, what policy? There is no doubt a racial. Oh, we already see. We was going so hard. Hold on. Okay. There is no doubt a racial component to the disconnect between law enforcement and Black citizens. How can we heal that, and what are your thoughts on this sentiment?
So, the waves of protests across the country really represent a genuine and a legitimate frustration over decades-long failures to reform police practices and really the broader criminal justice system in the entire country. Recent protests from here, they've just raised public awareness, and they put a spotlight on the injustices that we've really been crying about for a long time, and for some reason we've gotten the powers that be, we've gotten their attention. So they're now able to move even in their level of being uncomfortable and not really wanting to deal with the actual issue of, excessive force being used by law enforcement, and how they even approach minorities versus how they approach, Dylan, who killed people, but you took him out to get a burger before
you get a burger. Like, good job.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So, but, here we are dealing with walking while Black. We can't do anything, and we don't even have to be violating the law, and we still might not survive an encounter with law enforcement, and that's a problem. So
but I don't think. Can I put this on wax?
Absolutely.
I don't think that is a big, like, there are KKK member police officers. We know
absolutely.
that.
Absolutely.
But I cannot lie and say that I have not seen videos where other races got like hurt and murdered by steroid out, psychologically damaged policemen. So I think that the bigger issue is I feel like there should be some psychological testing done, some extensive background checks on anybody who wants to be a police officer. There cannot be bullies from high school getting their bully rocks off as adults.
Right.
Like, it's not fair to the regular citizens, because the police's mantra is serve and protect. Who are you serving and who are you protecting if you aren't
right?
If you're the enemy of the people, or you're conducting yourself as an enemy of the people,
without accountability, though, with immunity. And that's why I continue to participate and support rallies. I was just in Flushing yesterday, and they had a Black Lives Matter rally, and I would say 80 to 90% of the participants were all white, and they came out to say, we stand with you in solidarity against the racial injustices because we see it now, so I think sometimes civil disobedience is necessary to shape the political system and demand the necessary attention to expose the injustices of what we have been for so long, which is a marginalized community that has gone on without repercussion. So the death of George Floyd was simply the tip of the iceberg, coming right off the murder of Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor. And, we had one in our own backyard, Demetrius Presnall, who was shot in his back 9 times at the Regency, and I tend to coin that as walking while black because he wasn't doing anything wrong. They didn't see him. There was no drug transaction, no nothing. And now he's dead, and yet the prosecutor ruled that a justified homicide. So, we're dealing with so many emotions right now: fear, sorrow, confusion, uncertainty. Add to the lead water crisis. Now add to that this COVID-19, pandemic that's going on, and it's like we have so many compounded tragic reminders of the prejudice because even African Americans are disproportionately impacted by the COVID-19 virus. We're dying at a higher rate than others. And so there's so much inequity that's built into not just the legal system, not just the police department, but in our educational system, in our healthcare system. And we got to start somewhere because there's so much wrong. Everybody is like, they've thrown their hands up and said, well, everything's wrong. So we don't even know where to start. Let's start in the prosecutor's office. That's what I'm saying. We'll start right there. We'll leverage the power of that office to collaborate with others and to come up with some proactive solutions so that we can change things for the better and that we can do it now because this opportunity may not happen again.
Right. I do believe that the COVID-19 situation, whether some people believe it's real or not or whatever, I feel like this is a good moment in history where we can literally do a reset of values, a reconstruction of the power dynamic,
Exactly.
Like this is the opportunity for the actual righteous people, no matter what race you are, to no, this is my spot, and we're gonna dismantle all the evils that's been been running rampant.
Yes.
So, okay, as a Black woman running for Genesee County prosecutor, have you experienced any obstacles that were unexpected?
So, no, not really, not at all, because no one has ever rolled out the red carpet for me. Studi, not in high school, not in college at Jackson State University, not at Michigan State University Law School, not in the Army, not in airborne school, not as a defense attorney, not even as a prosecutor. So I've always had to work hard. I've always been the one that comes in early and stays late. I'm always the one taking work home with me. So not really, because I'm used to an uphill battle. I'm used to it, but I'm also used to winning. And so the work pays itself off. And so that's what we continue to do to fight for change. And, and it goes back to what you were asking before about my military history and experience. It's just prepared me, for service. And I understand sacrifice because there's no greater time and no place that's in greater need right now than Genesee County. And so I will give it 110%, no matter what it takes, because it's too much at stake. I don't want my child to have to go through what George Floyd went through. I don't want his last words to be mama, in the last 8 seconds of his life to be with somebody's knee on his neck, but I'm not lost that when I win, I'll be the first African-American county prosecutor and the first female county prosecutor. But I feel like it's time for us to break through that glass ceiling and bring equality and equal justice to this community. But I cannot do it from the outside looking in. So that's why I am running to get in the driver's seat, because I'm ready to put my pedal to the metal.
Hey, and we ready for you.
Yes, sir.
How will you use your experience as an attorney to guide you as a prosecutor?
So, I always say 2020 is the year of perfect vision. And so my experience as a Black woman, as a mother, as a soldier, as a veteran, as a prosecutor, as a defense attorney, as a mentor, all of that will come into play in guiding me as a prosecutor, because I don't check out of my reality when I check in as a prosecutor.
Right.
I won't be that person that gets in the office and gets brand new. Now I don't know you no more. Like, student, you can't call me up because I'm going on CNN.
Right.
But, that's not me. You'll always be able to say, hey, can you come on my podcast and talk about this policy or that policy or, this prosecution? And, as long as it's public information, then I can absolutely share it. I really believe in transparency, because if you understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, if you understand the rules about who's able to do what, when, where, how, and why, then you can accept the outcome of whatever that is. And that's what transparency does. I know the issues, I know the problems, I know the people, I know the judges, and I have good relationships with all of these people. That's going to allow me to work to balance the scales and to use my history and my exposure, because I've worked with all kinds of people. I was stationed in Germany, so I'm used to dealing with different cultures, and we really have different cultures right here in the county. A lot of people don't talk about it, but we have a large population of other segments of the community, that really get ignored a lot, and we need to bring them to the table. So all I'm saying is, Black people have been forced to start behind the start line, and yet they've been expected to finish on time. And under my leadership, that's going to change. I'm about fundamental fairness and implementing policies that don't contribute to the racial disparities that we've been dealing with forever. So my experience will be my guide.
That is amazing. Amazing answer. Okay, this is my last question for you.
Okay.
And then we're going to move on to Phil, and I'll let you hop in when I think,
Okay.
In your opinion, is corruption in the court system a viable concern due to the disproportionate amount of Blacks being prosecuted and in prison? And what, if any, are your plans to curb that, or at least make whatever difference you can in that?
I know that I would adopt term corruption as you posed it in the question, but I would definitely say there is serious reason to be concerned that the court system has implicit biasness and systemic racial practices that have directly contributed to the people of color being over-policed, overcharged, over-prosecuted, and over-sentenced. And I understand the system is really a business, and justice has been missing in action. And so we've got to focus not just on downtown Flint, not just making sure we charge any and everything downtown. We have to have an even-handed distribution of justice. We can't have people sitting in jail for 2, 3, 4 years waiting their day in court. That's not justice. So I will meet with law enforcement to conduct trainings. We need some implicit bias trainings, and we need to hold law enforcement accountable for their actions. I won't be a police protecting prosecutor. So I always say, whether you're carrying a badge or a bus pass, you will be held accountable for your actions, period.
Yeah.
So you will have someone in office that cares about the youth, that's striving to pave a path for them to success, not setting them up for failure the way it is now, even if they make a mistake, because it happens. It's time to do things differently. And I have a plan, I have the experience, and I have the intestinal fortitude, not just to make history, but to make a difference and get the job done of bringing real justice and real reform to Genesee County.
Amazing answer.
Thank you.
Phil.
Yes.
Your turn to be on the hot seat. No, I'm kidding.
All right.
What are the duties of a police chief?
The police chief is responsible for the overall day-to-day operations of the department. Staffing levels, activities, directed activities, budgeting, but more importantly, responsibility for the officers and their actions. And that is something from the top down that everyone needs to understand, that when someone goes awry in an agency, that is because the top is not watching what's going on. They're not making sure that the training is there, that the people are of the right caliber to be doing the job. And that is the main focus of the chief, in my opinion. The budgets and everything else we can get to, we can work with. There are enough people who can tell us, yeah, don't buy that ink pen or do buy that ink pen.
Right.
But to make sure that the officers are doing what they're supposed to be doing out on the street. If you ask someone in Europe what their job is as an officer, they'll tell you they're an educator. You ask them here what their job is, and they'll tell you to write tickets and arrest people. I'm trying to change that mindset to being an educator. When I was with the state police, they would give us latitude to determine whether or not you wanted to issue a citation at a traffic stop. And if you thought that you had compliance by just talking to that person, I did that more times than I wrote tickets, because the idea being that I'm looking for the compliance to keep them safe. There's a reason why that's there. And the same thing is to be said for arrests. If you arrest someone, it is not my determination, as Trishelle has said. That is the prosecutor. We write a report, put the facts into it, and make the determination. And I'll be real honest with you, from the point in time that I would drop someone off at the county jail, if the prosecutor decided to not charge, I never took offense at that. There are a lot of officers who do have a problem with that. I'm doing the job that I'm paid to do. And if I do enough times where I'm lodging someone in jail and they're not being charged, I need to be retrained. There's a problem. So I think that that's something, again, working with the prosecutor. When Trishelle gets in, I get in as sheriff. We work together and determine. She can see probably better than I could those people who need to be pulled out, retrained, and refocused.
I can see them now, Phil. I can give you a list right now.
I bet you
can.
And
I wanna ask you this too. Should there be a review on the legality of having a quota for speeding tickets and arrests? Because
go
ahead. I'm sorry. No,
there is no quota. The state Supreme Court has said that that's illegal. There used to be, when I was with the state, we would, need so many, not actually a number, but you're doing something, you have to do this much in an hour. There has to be an entry on your daily. It comes down to the point now where they want to see activity. And that activity may be stopping and talking to some youngsters alongside of the road. Because as was said earlier, the input when the kids are younger and a positive impact with law enforcement and the system, it has much more of an effect than me putting handcuffs on somebody years later. It just doesn't work. And we want to get with the kids. I've been involved in mentoring programs. Actually, I sat on the board of Big Brothers Big Sisters because it's important. Our youth are important, and you need to help them along the way. They don't know what they should and shouldn't do, and they look to us for that guidance and that leadership. And when I say they look to us, they look to adults. And we should, as law enforcement, be there to help educate them, as I said earlier, and not just look for. I mean, I always hated it in this line of work when the boss would come in and catch somebody doing something wrong and yell and scream and cause a big to-do. But if they caught him doing something right, they never even acknowledged it. And I think if we acknowledge doing things right, and then help them when they do something wrong, find out why. Is it a lack of training? Is it a lack of understanding? Or is it just the fact that maybe you shouldn't be doing what it is I have you doing? And we move forward from there. I think that makes us all better, and all of us are stronger working together.
Amazing answer.
Thank you.
Before I ask this question, if anybody has questions that they want to ask the individuals on the panel, I will have a section at the end where I'll put up your comment and then I'll let them expound on your question. So just keep putting them in the chat and I will get to them. How has your perspective on law enforcement changed throughout your years of service?
Well, I think the biggest answer I can give you there is simply like what I was just speaking about. The fact that when I started out, you got in a patrol car and you went out and you wrote tickets and you made arrests. And I started to learn through the years that the idea is to educate the public to understand what it is that they shouldn't do and why they shouldn't do it. It's a safety matter. That's why we're there.
Right.
We're not there to catch someone doing bad. That's unfortunately what it's kind of turned into at this point. The
Yes.
idea, though, is for us to be out and help people to do the right things. I mean, officers should be out and about. I would love to go back to a complete community policing. And I think with having inclusion in the community, knowing who people are, learning, that gives them an opportunity to come up and say, hey, Phil, I got this problem. Maybe you can help me with this. Or I perceive an issue could be coming up. You know, your help could be very useful here. And I think we could take care of an awful lot of things, because a lot of times it's a misunderstanding. It's a disagreement. It's whatever the situation is. I mean, if you take even a homicide, someone is mad at someone for a particular reason. Could we talk to them? Should we have talked to them years ago and maybe help them so that they weren't at this juncture right now?
Yeah.
And through the years, I have found that that's the biggest point that's helpful, is talking to everyone, learning what it is that people are looking from me when I show up, and so that I don't disappoint when I'm there.
Yeah, I have a small personal story to give credence to what you're saying, because a couple years ago, I had an emergency where my then girlfriend was having like some medical issues, and I was walking. I didn't have a vehicle, and I saw a cop parked there, and I was like, "Sir, my girlfriend is going through this. Is there any way you can either drop me off at the corner, or just, is there anything you can do?" And he said, "No, it's not my duty. It's not
It's
my
not my
jurisdiction."
job.
Yeah, and it's like, so who are you protecting and serving? What are you here for then? Because if I stole a candy bar from the store, you would have, whoop whoop. It would have been real quick. I would have been out of there. So,
well, it's an interesting point. If you'll notice, in the state police cars, they don't have the screens in the back, and the reason for that is because they tell us not everybody who gets in your car is someone who's broken the law, and you need to understand. And you make a prime example of it. I might be taking you to the hospital because you need to get there, and you don't have any other means to do so. And man, there is absolutely nothing wrong with us putting you in the car and taking you there. That if one of my officers had that on their daily, I'd bring them in and just throw all kinds of accolades on them, because that's why we're there. That's part of the service, and serve and protect.
Facts. Okay, you kind of answered this already. But there is a large distrust between law enforcement and citizens. We are often seen as potential criminals before we are looked at as regular citizens. Do you agree or disagree? And what can we do as citizens and as law enforcement to change that narrative?
I absolutely agree. I mean, I don't know how you could watch TV for 5 minutes and not see that. Just out in the real world, if you don't have blinders on, you're going to notice it. I think several things. Number one, as an officer, I have never been to a situation where I feel like I need to judge someone based on a call or an appearance or what someone has whispered to me on the way up there. It's my job to gather the facts. But I think part of this distrust is a big part of it comes on our behalf. When you walk up to a car and you're very curt with an individual and you don't explain what's going on.
Right.
I had numerous instances where people would come into the front door of the post and say, "Your trooper gave me a ticket," and I said, "Well, I understand you can go in and see the magistrate," and they'd say, "No, that's not it. It's the fact that they think I'm a bad person. They didn't give me a chance to explain." And so I would sit and listen to them, and it was amazing how many people would walk out happy. And I would tell them, depending on the circumstance and the situation, maybe they were out on the freeway and they're saying, "Well, yeah." And I said, "Okay, it's a little scary to stand out there. I don't discount what you're saying, but it's a little scary to stand out there and have cars whiz by you at 55, 60, 70 miles an hour. But in the same token, maybe go up, ask them to pull a little further off the road, put your car in a situation to block it." I would shoot for to try to get someone to say thank you, not because I issued a citation or anything else, but because of the treatment that I gave them. Because it's scary. You have no idea the impact that you're having on that person's life. You don't know what kind of day they had. And I can tell you, if you'll indulge me for a minute, I had an opportunity when I was a trooper. I made a traffic stop on a young man. He had loud exhaust in his car. His car was really in rough shape. I stopped him. In fact, he had a rope to hold the two doors shut in the front.
Oh.
And I wrote him a ticket for loud exhaust. I was pleased with myself because it's a dismissible ticket. He gets the exhaust fixed, and we're both happy. It's nothing, none too punitive. 6 months later, I make a traffic stop. I'm working a different shift, and I have a partner with me. I get the gentleman stopped. As I'm walking up to the car, I get that deja vu. It looks familiar. My partner's already called in the plate on the stop. When I walk up, the young driver looks at me and then hangs his head down. He said, "You probably don't remember me. You wrote me a ticket 6 months ago for loud exhaust. I couldn't afford to get it fixed. I never answered to the charge. They suspended my license, and there's a warrant for my arrest." And he said, because I'm suspended and I'm basically an honest person, I didn't drive to work. I started riding with friends, and my friends didn't want to take me back and forth unless I paid them. So I lost my job. When I lost my job, my wife took our kids and left me, and I lost my house. And sir, I'm living out of my car right now. And I tell people this: you have no idea the impact. Make sure what you're doing, because I thought I was doing a good thing. I was giving him a break, when in actuality, what I should have done was helped him get his car repaired. And subsequently, that's what I did. I went to the judge. I explained to the judge. I stayed over in the morning and went in and seen the judge and explained the whole circumstance, asked if I could have my ticket dismissed, asked if they could remove the bench warrant for not answering. And then I took him down and to one of the local service stations that I knew the people, and got him his exhaust fixed. That to this day bothers me, because my job is to protect people and to serve them. And I did anything but protect him. It's ruined the man's life. And that was not my intent, but that's how easy it can go. And so I tell my officers all the time, you have no idea the impact you make by making this traffic stop. And so when you walk up, understand that you have all this authority. Be very diligent about what you do and make sure that you are treating them properly.
And I appreciate that you tried to make amends for what happened, and the fact that you're using that experience as a lesson for other officers, because I've had I don't think that officers understand their. Okay, I remember one day I had just got off of work. Line was long. I went into Burger King, decided I didn't want any food, and went around. A cop pulled me over, right? Zoomed up on me, pulled me over, said, "Oh, hold on, I'll get to that part." When he pulled me over, right? I barely got on the highway. I pulled straight over. He had the lights on, whatever. I'm like, okay, let me, all these police killings, like, let me just chill. You know what I'm saying? I ain't trying to. I'm a big guy. I work out, so I might be a little intimidated. So I'm like, let me make sure my hands are showing. I got my stuff out. Why is he walking? Remember, all I did was go through the Burger King parking lot. Why is he walking towards me with his hand on his gun?
Wow.
And it's just like we literally have to deal with that. And you cannot be that afraid if you're a police officer, or what about me makes you feel so threatened because I cut through a Burger King? And then when I asked him, like, what are you pulling me over for? He said, "Oh, I won't tell you until you give me your ID." And I'm like, okay. So I gave him my ID. He ran my name, saw that I didn't have any tickets or anything. I'm not a criminal, so I don't do anything. So he goes back and says, "Oh, you tried to no, what did he say? You tried to avoid traffic, so I'm giving you a ticket, and you don't have any insurance." And I'm like, okay, the insurance is fine, but I did not know that it was a penalty if I, decide that I don't want something to eat, to go ahead and go around and go on the road. And he didn't even look at me. He didn't acknowledge me. He had his sunglasses on. I'm talking to the side of his face, and he's not looking at me.
Wow.
And it's like, how can you walk up to me with your hand on your gun, see that I'm not a criminal, and then not be man enough to look me in my face as you know that you're writing me up for a ticket that you shouldn't be doing? Like that, I feel like that's an issue. And it's like, it's hard for me not to believe that it was racist because you weren't man enough to look at me. And you walked up to me with a gun. Like, I'm not blasting loud music. I'm not doing anything. I literally just did like 10, 11 hours in a factory. I'm dead tired. And you're going to walk up with me with your hand on your pistol? That is wild. That's crazy.
And that situation could have took a much different turn.
I wouldn't be talking to y'all, that's for sure.
Somebody that's irritated and approached the wrong way, that could have really went a different direction.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And why not at least take the glasses off? I do that as a course of courtesy. I want you to look into my eyes when you're talking to me. Yes. And I'm looking into your eyes. And I'm telling you, if you will take the time to be decent with people, they will be decent with you. And that's just the point. It doesn't matter any race or anything else. If you treat people with respect, you should be doing that. Treat them with respect if you expect to get respect back. And the idea that, I mean, if I go through a drive-through, I take off my sunglasses when I talk to the people at the window because I just think it's rude for them not to see me. And I can't understand that. I can't fathom that. Plus, why do I want those on if I'm trying to see everything that's going on? Those things, you got blocks on the side where you can't see everything. I want to see what's going on. I'm not that concerned what's going on in the car necessarily. It might be what's going on around me. Like, is a car going to come up and hit me from behind because I'm standing out in the lane a little bit? I don't need sunglasses on, so I turn my head sideways and there's a post there and I can't see that. So, there's a whole myriad of things of what you're saying that just, it drives me crazy. That those are the kind of things that are causing these problems today.
Yes, exactly. And I think that because when it happened to me after the racial stuff, I was thinking of the quota, and that's why I brought it up. I'm like, he must have a quota to obtain, or because that's wild. But my next question is, considering some controversy you experienced, can you tell the people about your Police Explorer program, and could you please expound on this program?
Yes, I can. Thank you. It's a combined effort with the University of Michigan. Actually, the chief over there, Ray Hall, is the one who is authoring and getting the funding in place behind it. He's basing it on the Michigan State Police Cadet program, only he goes a little bit younger. We are 14 to 21 years of age. We'll take the young kids. And what we're looking at is some classroom training, some ride-alongs, and community service. And the benefit of this is numerous, actually, many aspects of it, because it gives us the opportunity to see them in a situation, in a setting, to determine if they have the temperament, if they are going to be well placed to be in law enforcement.
Yes.
It also gives them the opportunity, because we have had opportunities to put people into the academy. I've seen this throughout my years in law enforcement. Once they get through, they get out and say, I don't think I want to do this. This isn't for me. And though it's good that they have that experience now, they see that it is a space that someone else could have utilized. And so we would have that extra officer out when we need them. Right. We also put them through physical fitness and military drills. So again, like I say, they get a real life learning, and then we utilize them around the office, so they get to talk to real officers and kind of ask questions. What about this, and how does that work, and what do we do here? Because I think it's a two-way street. Not only is it something that they've got to want, but it's something that we've got to see in them that they have, if you will, the calling to do. This isn't something you just say, I think I'm going to go do this because I want to put a gun on my hip. Man, if I hear that, I want them out. Right. If I hear an officer say, no, I don't get scared, I want them out. I mean, there are certain circumstances that should scare you. If you have someone shooting guns at you, and I've been there 3 times, you should have a little bit of concern for your safety and those around you. And that's why I've never returned fire, because it wasn't safe to do so. But I think it's a very good opportunity for us to pick from the best, and we are bringing in these kids from our local community, so they know the area, they have connections to the area, and they can help us because, again, they're looking at the world from a different point of view than us, and so putting them in a situation of training, they can help us to train on the other side to make sure that we are getting the ideas of what the community wants, and we're seeing where they're going.
Excellent.
You guys have a shortage right now. I saw you were on the news saying that it's hard for you to find people to fill the positions that you have. So that type of program would actually get these kids interested in law enforcement. So I think that really serves a great purpose.
Yes, and because that will change the narrative, and I think because you're coming into the community to get police officers for that community, that a lot of the racial disparity changes, and also that because we only have two representation of what a police officer is, either from the TV or seeing them patrol and pull people over. So I think if y'all with that program, y'all can show people, okay, here goes some reality. It's not just bang, bang, shoot, shoot. And we are actual people who are actually serving, who are doing an actual job. And that also for the policemen, that could help them have some type of connection to the I'm sorry, that will give them a connection to the community and see that there isn't as much hate as it is perceived that people have for the officers. So,
well, that's exactly right. And I think that that's an interesting point. Now, it's illegal to force an officer to live in the area in which they are required to patrol. However, I think it's a valid point to have people from the community that are working in the community, because they know everyone who's there, or at least a good portion of them, but they also know the mood of what's going on around the community. Is it safe in this area? If that's the case, then do we need to have as much resources there? Can we put them someplace else where maybe people are speeding? And again, if you're from the area, you know where people are shortcutting, where they're speeding, where they're doing other things, as opposed to having to drive around willy-nilly and hope you catch it. That is, again, though, like I say, we're so short-handed, that doesn't happen much. We just run from call to call. But again, it'd be good to have the background and knowledge from the community so that we understand why these calls are coming in the first place. And maybe we can do something on the front end to stop it from happening in the first place. Yeah,
and see, I believe that that is absolutely correct. I believe I am in agreement with you with that. Okay, so during an interview, you mentioned being a part of a Black Lives Matter panel. What is this about? And is this actually a part of the BLM movement, or is this something that Genesee County officials came up with?
Yeah, it's not a part of the BLM movement. It was named as that. I think probably. Well, I can't even say why. I think maybe because of what was going on at the time. But the idea is it's a panel being brought together, and they're city residents. There was like an application process, I believe, is what happened. The mayor set this up, and it's to foster communication and open dialogue between the community and law enforcement. And it also ensures that you have community residents who have a seat at the table with direct communication with the police department via me and some of the other members of the agency. But it's going to be citizen-led. This is not something where I'm the chair or I'll have the say in it. I'm just going to be one of the members.
Right. Put me on that panel, because I am definitely one of the voices of our generation, and I care about our people and I care about our community. But Trishelle, is there anything that you would like to add to that as far as having a panel like that? With like, what are your feelings about?
Well, I think anything that facilitates communication and having the right people at the table can't go wrong. I don't think you can have too much discussion of the issues because different people bring different things to the table. And so I think if you just have to put things on the table and together come up with a solution, and when you get that overall buy-in, everybody is going to be vested in the success of whatever resolution you develop.
Right. That is correct. And this is my last question towards you, and then we got some overall questions, and then I'm going to let the people who are in the chat ask you guys some questions, and then we're going to end it. As a white man proceeding over a mostly Black community like Flint, how do you approach your job, and are racial components ever considered in your action?
The way I approach my job is to understand that I am only one of the residents of the city of Flint for which I am sworn to serve. And so knowing that, I realize that I have to have, as Trishelle has said numerous times, the communication. I have to have communication with those with whom I'm sworn to protect and defend. Otherwise, what I'm doing is very short-sighted. And I don't know what it is that's most important to the people in the community if I don't ask them. And so to learn those points, that's absolutely necessary for my job. As far as the racial component ever being considered, and the answer to that would be yes, because I have to make sure that my officers are not utilizing race as any sort of reason for traffic stops, arrests, search warrants, or anything else. I need to make sure that they're aware, and that's the reason why I've enlisted the help to get the Truthfulness, Racial Healing, and Trust program in the department. We're going to start with my officers first internally to make sure that we don't have any strife internally, because I dare say that there will be, and it needs to be resolved. And then we open it up and we have with the public, because once again, we all need to be working together to accomplish our goals. And when I say all, I'm talking about the community and law enforcement. No one is going to fix this issue. Trishelle said much earlier about the different aspects. And if you look, this is multifaceted. There are many areas that have to be touched for us to fix what's going on today. But you've got two in front of you right here that can make a really good start with that. Indeed.
Okay, so I want to say this before we go on to the next questions. Your answers are just amazing, both of you, Trishelle and Phil. Like the fact that your generation is seeing and hearing and listening and trying to do something about it. I have to say that we need y'all. It gives me hope that we won't always live under the system that we're in. So thank you for that. I don't want to seem biased, so I'm not going to say what I want to say, but just know. Okay. Here goes some just panel, like what it's not in order. These questions, whoever wants to answer can do it. And we kind of already touched on this. Do you think that there is a mental health issue with the citizens of Genesee County due to years of exposure to the lead poisoning? We touched on it a little bit, but we can go deeper if you'd like with that.
I mean, I think there's a issue with mental health far before the lead crisis, came about. Right. But I think the lead crisis again added insult to injury, because now you've added an element where you may be okay with all types of issues. They don't really know what those issues could be. With kids, it could be something similar to ADHD. They could have learning disabilities. So we have to start dealing with mental health. And really, in the Black community, we have historically not been very good at saying that we have mental health issues and that we need to get counseling or we need to seek medication. We're so used to dealing with a struggle, we just think we're gonna suck it up and drive on. So
right.
We're overcoming that perception that mental health is a bad thing. But it is what it is. If there's an issue, the bottom line is you have to deal with it in order to move on and to be great at whatever it is you're trying to do.
Oh, I agree
That's
with
correct.
that completely. I mean, like I said, back under Engler, a lot of the mental health facilities were shut down, and people were just ushered out into the streets to take care of themselves. Families didn't have the wherewithal in a lot of instances to help, and so these people were left out in situations. We have homeless people, and I got to tell you, that's one of my that just kills me.
Yeah.
As powerful as this country is, and we have people living under overpasses and taking drugs to try to medicate themselves because they can't afford to go to a doctor, begging for money or food or anything else. And I think there is more of this that goes on than what a lot of people realize. A lot of people drive by, don't see it. And I think there's even probably situations where the people in these situations aren't even coming out into the public much, at least during the day, because they don't want to be seen, ridiculed, treated differently. And
Mhm.
I think it's incumbent upon us to get them the help. And this is one of those faceted aspects that I think is necessary, that we get mental health available for everyone. We talk about freedom for treatment medically. This is one of the big ones that they need, and no one should have to worry about whether or not they can afford it. They
Mhm.
need help. Until you're on a stable ground, the rest of it you really can't comprehend and resolve. So this is what's important to start with, and then we can move into the other medical aspects as well.
All right. I agree with what both of you said. I feel like there should be some, if not institutions, some like trauma centers or something for people who are just dealing with psychological issues. That just, even if it's just somebody to talk to,
Yes.
because poverty is psychological. Drugs is psychological. Weight issues are psychological. There's a lot of factors that start with your mind. Like, you cannot be a healthy person without a healthy mind. You can't make
Right.
sound decisions if you aren't mentally healthy. And I think that is, in fact, ignored a lot. Like, we are used to, when you're living in the inner city, you are used to gunshots, and you shouldn't be. You are
Right.
used to
Right.
crashing on the ground, and you shouldn't be. You're used to drug addicts walking the streets. You're used to people looking angry as they walk by. You're used to like, what is it? Angry drivers. You're used to cops patrolling. You're used to so much. It's like we're living on a battlefield, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
it is such negative stimulation that how can you not be anxious? How can you not be ready to snap? How can you not be depressed? And because it's a problem when it's a social thing to see a bunch of adults standing in front of a liquor store drinking. Like, that's not normal. Like, you don't have
Right.
nothing to do,
Oh,
huh?
I know a lot of people that's normal for.
No, I'm saying, like, it shouldn't be. I'm saying, like,
I
that should
get
not be the norm. That shouldn't be a social construct
you.
to
I got
just sit around and drink, or to see an individual walking and talking to themselves and not have the urge to help or do anything.
you.
And
Right.
then it's like, you don't know if they're going to attack you. So then it's just a lot of psychological trauma that goes on in everyday life in the inner city that I feel like the citizens need to, put a hand in changing, because we can't just keep complaining about things and not doing nothing to stop it.
Right.
Absolutely.
Um, Money has been poured into the downtown area, so there are fears of gentrification. What are your thoughts on that?
I addressed that earlier, Phil. Did you want to talk about that?
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly right. We're spending money in the wrong areas, and the fact that we are putting forth in the downtown. Now, I can appreciate it looks nice, but how many people can go downtown and afford to get a meal or park or anything else. And I think that if we better utilize our resources and come up with places for people to live. I mean, we have, because of GM pulling out of the city of Flint, we've got this big vacuum that's taken place, a loss of a lot of jobs. We've had numerous people that have even left the area, and we have people that have left Flint to move to the out county areas as well. And it would be nice to see this money put back in a positive aspect to help some of the residences that I've seen in the city on my travels are well below what anyone should be expected to live in. Maybe the funding should be used to help bring that up to speed. Some of the small business loans, economic business, maybe that stuff should be utilized in a different aspect to try to bring back our socioeconomic status back up in Flint where it should be, as opposed to just expecting, well, I build a brand new restaurant and I think everybody's going to come downtown and utilize it. I don't know how they possibly can. They have no transportation to get down there. If they take the bus, they have to make sure that they catch the last bus back home. Do they have the money even to pay for the meal once they get there? And so just so many different areas that concern me. And I appreciate that the downtown is looking nice and things are picking up. But once again, if we don't have the aspects of crime and safety under control, you can make downtown look as nice as you want, and no one will come into our town and spend funds.
Right. Because the city is starting to look beautiful downtown, and then it's just the further out you go, you see the trash, you see the poverty, you see the abandoned buildings, you see the deprivation. You know, it's an issue that I think is very important to address. So thank you for those answers. Can we briefly discuss the school to prison pipeline?
Certainly. Did you want to?
Yeah, go. I am very anxious to hear what Trishelle has to say about that.
Oh, I didn't know if you were asking a question or you just wanted that topic. So that's a big issue for me, because I think the way the system is set up right now, we're absolutely feeding the school to prison pipeline. You know, the schools now have these policies that are not in the best interest of the kids. You know, when their fights break out, you know, both people are automatically kicked out for a certain amount of time. They're not put in a learning environment. You know, they're sent home. Who knows what's going on in that home in the first place? They're not dealing with the aggression that they're feeling. They're not dealing with, you know, whatever they're being exposed to. And then they return and now they're behind. You know, when they're behind, they get disinterested because they're like, well, you know what? I don't know where y'all at. I don't know what we're doing. And I mean, I'm talking kids who get kicked out 14, 30, you know, sometimes, you know, and it's just not even productive. So you get kids out of the educational setting and you either put them home or somewhere else, but they end up either hustling or, you know, out in the street doing something they don't have any business doing, because an idle mind and idle time, you know, that's dangerous. And so they're going to find something to do. Add to that these crazy video games, and Studi, you might be one of them. I don't know. You know, they sit and play those video games, and you know, it's like the more disrespectful, the more bloody, the more violent. You know, you're putting all of this in their head. And that's what they're doing all day, because they become, you know, the caretaker for the kids, because mom is out working. Dad is likely locked up, you know, because of what's going on in the system. Right. And so they end up doing stuff they have no business doing, whether it's starting to sell drugs, you know. And I heard on one of your shows when you were talking about the financial literacy, you know, one of your guests was saying, don't pay that $250 for those new Jordans. You know, save it for a couple of go-rounds and put it down on a car. You know, but we're not teaching these kids anything when we're kicking them out of school. We were trying to develop a program at Haskell where when kids got kicked out of the regular school, they would get sent over to Haskell, and we would have the ability to give them their educational, you know, whatever studies that they needed to do, but also bring in counselors that could talk to them about what's really going on and try to get them some help for whatever the real problem is. If they want to fight, why are you fighting? Why are you so angry? You know, what's causing you to put your hands on somebody else? Because that's a problem. And then showing them this behavior is going to take you right down this road. You know, I have a map that it shows when you make good decisions where you're going to go, and when you make bad decisions where you're going to end up. And it's so many routes to end up in prison. It's like 20 routes. And on the good path, yeah, it's like 1, 2, 3. Do what's right. Be honest. Be fair. Work hard. You know, I mean, it's that simple.
Yeah.
But life is not simple for a lot of these youth. You know, and so it would be unfair for us to just punish them like we're doing. You know, taking them and overcharging them. They're getting felonies. You know, and it's just that's how they end up in prison. We're basically criminalizing them. You know, we're introducing them at a young age to the criminal system.
Yeah. Indoctrination.
That's it. And you know, and that has to change. That's why we got to start treating kids like kids. But at the same time, they got to realize, it's like you said, it's consequences to your actions. You have that free will. But if you take somebody's life, you're going to do some time.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to do some time. You know what? But if you shoplifting out at the mall, or if you shoplifting somewhere, it's a non-violent offense. In my opinion, you don't locked up at all, period. So, you know, we got to come up with better solutions.
Yeah, for sure. I think because when somebody wouldn't steal if they had the money, you know, to purchase something. So it should be more like, okay, what is your living condition? Is there programs to help your family? Yada, yada, yada. All that.
But that all, Studi, also boils down to money, because it takes money to have somebody that's going to look into the situation. You're dealing with prosecutors and police that are already overworked and underpaid. You know, so it's hard for them to go that extra mile. You're not going to have a lot of pure hearts that, you know, try to come back in and try to right that wrong and go that extra mile, you know, and pay for somebody's vehicle to get fixed, because he realized it wasn't helping the situation, it was hurting it.
But then there go, and that's a country. Before I let Phil go, that is a country issue then, because we should not be paying all these entertainers all this money when we have all these internal structural issues. So
the priorities they need to be rearranged.
Yes.
Go ahead, Phil.
Oh, okay. Yeah, one of the things with the school prison prison pipeline, in the recent past, I made some changes within our agency. We are no longer going to take calls for discipline at the schools. We have gone in numerous times because this young man or this young woman won't sit down in their chair, won't this, won't that. That's not criminal. Unless it's criminal, law enforcement doesn't need to be a part. Right. Now, that being said, the mentoring aspect, we can certainly do that, but it doesn't necessarily have to be in that setting. But my point being is to threaten these kids every time they see a police officer, it's a threat to them, because they're thinking, well, they were called on me because I wouldn't do this for the teacher. I wouldn't do that for the teacher. We should not have any kind of actions with that whatsoever. The school has teachers. They can handle the discipline. The principal can handle it. They should have school counselors if the kids are having some sort of an issue there. And again, we're not trained in that aspect. We should not be there to look at that. It's unfair for us, and it's certainly unfair for the youth that we're confronting. And what I've instructed my officers to do is, if it's not a criminal matter, we aren't going to go. We're going to refer that to the school system. They can handle it. If they need us for any assistance at all, we're to use the least amount of input as we can. In every situation, other than maybe something very serious, release the child to their parents. There's no reason for us to be dragging them around, to take them in, push them into a juvenile system. We can then contact the prosecutor's office to determine whether or not they wish to proceed, which if Trichelle's in there, I can tell you pretty much I'm going to have a good understanding before we even go to that. Whereas now it's hit and miss. And I don't see us, like she said. I mean, we have to treat the kids like kids. And if you're going to school and that's just one more battle you have is with law enforcement at school, why are you going to go? You're going to leave as soon as you can. And there's no good that comes from that.
Because there's been a lot of videos of a lot of babies being slammed on their head or snatched out of their chairs, or, like, it's like, yo, because I think that builds, not only does that build a fear, but a mistrust in authority from the jump.
And that's even more damaging. That's even more damaging. So I was looking at your comments on there, and it's a guy and Crown G, and he was saying how perfectly legitimate he is, but when he's riding down the street, if the police get behind him, it's all of a sudden, you just don't know. No, and I feel like that, and I'm a lawyer. That it cannot be that way. We got to stop that.
Like you have a brick in the trunk or something, and you just left your mom's house or something. Yeah. Oh, by the way, Crown G, that's one of my business partners. He's an amazing father, an amazing man. I have to put that out there. He's a great person. How has COVID-19 affected your professional and personal life?
Who do you want?
I'll
go ahead, Phil.
Okay. Professional life, it has impacted us immensely. As you know, we have limited gatherings, both inside and out. People should be in masks, particularly when they're going into confined spaces. My officers have had to go and still make the normal contacts that they make, unknowing of if the person has COVID or not. The disease itself may not even manifest into any symptoms until you've had it for 3 or 4 days. So you could potentially get an exposure every time you make a traffic stop, every time you talk to someone on their front porch. And so it's difficult. Beyond that, it's also impacted as far as meetings, where I'm kind of a social person. I like to meet face to face. As I said, I'll take my glasses off and look someone right in the eyes because I like to make that connection. I want to make that connection and let them know that you can trust me, or at least work towards earning their trust. And it's hard to do on a computer. It's a difficult thing. It's handy. It's really great. I have a lot more meetings now than I had before because they're so easy to set up, and usually they're longer than what they were before because of the same thing. But again, it's I don't know how much actually is accomplished with some of the meetings because of the distractions, things like we've had here with freezing up and that sort of thing. In my personal life, much the same thing. Family and friends, I haven't been able to gather with because of this. Concerns for myself and my wife with our age and other medical factors that we have, because this is an absolute real disease. I have had a very good friend of mine, his wife passed. My wife's cousin, his wife passed. And I have actually had an employee who has passed from it as well. And so this is no joke. It's there and it's real, and we need to take it serious. And so I do what I can to maintain what the doctors are saying, what the governor's telling us to try to keep the safety.
Trishelle?
So I would basically echo that. It's my kids are all grown and gone, and so I'm pretty much solo down here, and it really, in my opinion, has brought us closer because we talk now far more often because we just get on Zoom, and we can see each other, and everybody's in their comfort zone and having a good time, and I know they're safe, and so I don't have to worry about them because everything shut down. So we were all on lockdown in our respective places. So as it professionally, I had already kind of started to put my business aside because of the campaign. I wanted to put 110% into running for Genesee County prosecutor. And so I had already kind of wrapped my cases up. But for the cases that were still going, we're doing Zoom hearings. And, I actually think it's forced the courts to step their game up and kind of come into the 21st century. So I don't think that that's a bad thing. The only bad thing is, I wasn't able to go into the jail and, visit with my clients as often as I would have liked to done. And I feel like they were the ones really in isolation, even though they weren't in technical isolation. But as it relates to, the court hearings and all of that, I have no problem Zooming, because I can Zoom from the comfort of my own home. And like Phil said, COVID-19 is real. I know family and friends who have passed from this, and pastors, and, again, it's impacted minorities in a bigger way than it's impacted others. And so I've always been, I don't leave home without a mask. I don't care what your president is saying about how harmless it is. I'm going to follow the science. So, it's really hindered our ability to get together, in the large numbers, like Phyllis said. But all in all, it just shows you that health is more important than money, and anything else, because you can have all the money in the world, but if you're sick, and you can't even enjoy that money. So you got to take care of your health first.
Right.
That's right.
That's a fact. Whether it's real or not, people are dying. So being conscious and putting your health first. I meant to say, whether you believe it's real or not, if people are dying around you, then you need to protect yourself and take whatever precautions that you feel is absolutely needed. This is my last question that I have, and then I'm gonna read off some of the comments, and that some of them have questions for you. When is the election, and where can people follow you on social media?
So the election is August 4th. However, the Secretary of State has sent out absentee ballot applications to everyone that is registered to vote. So if they filled that out and returned it, then they will get their absentee ballot in the mail and can vote from the comfort of their own home. So I am strongly encouraging people to utilize that absentee ballot process, so you don't have to worry about going to the polls on election day, standing in lines, worrying about germs and bacteria, or somebody talking to you because they don't think the virus is real and they don't want to wear a mask, and you feel like your space is invaded. You want to avoid all that. Turn in your absentee ballot and make sure you vote, because that is vital and very critical. So that's what I would say as it relates to that.
Okay. Let me find some of the questions, because they were asking some good questions. Let me see. I usually bring them up on screen, but for some reason, some of the comments are kind of deleted a little bit. So I'm going to read from my phone. I know one of the questions someone had is, as prosecutor, what would your integrity unit look like?
So I think they're referring to my conviction integrity unit, and that basically is a group that's going to review the prior convictions for the past 15 years to determine if any of them were based on constitutional violations. I know there's been a case where there was prosecutorial misconduct in people who have served time that shouldn't have to serve time. So it's going to be a pursuit of justice. It's going to look like if anyone's constitutional rights were violated, if anyone's, behavior or complaint about how they were treated, and if there was excessive force, there's a doctrine called fruit of the poisonous tree. So what that means is if you were interrogating somebody and you beat them and then they confess and you use that confession against them, and now they're serving time, that confession should be thrown out because it was taken in violation of your rights, and it's considered fruit of that poisonous tree. So if we find cases like that where there's some fruit of the poisonous tree, we need to make it right. And that's what my integrity unit would look like, because it's just in the pursuit of justice, whatever that looks like. Justice for one can look like something completely different as for justice for another one. So it's really something you determine on a case-by-case basis.
Okay. PJ says, I am happy to see this joint effort between Attorney Young and Chief Hart working together. This is big. Thank you both. That's what PJ said in the comments.
All right.
Here's another question. Let me me see. Prison reform in general. What is the purpose in letting prisoners gain degrees and diplomas, but they cannot use them once released? I think we spoke on this earlier.
Yeah, and then his answer is, it's kind of a rhetorical, because there is no point. You get a degree that's really useless. It's just on paper. So, but there is legislation that is pending right now called the Clean Slate Initiative that is going to help a lot of people. We're having a workshop on that next week at my headquarters, where I'm just going to educate people about that new legislation and then the expungement laws. But, when you have to check that box, like I was saying earlier, it hurts you. And you can be the perfect person for the job, but as an employer, I just may never give you that opportunity.
And I want to apologize for the background noise. Who is responsible for changing the militarization of officers against protesters who are exercising their constitutional rights?
I guess that
would be the chief of the agency. And you'll notice that when we had our protests in Flint, my officers weren't us out there with them face to face, and it was just the normal dress. And in fact, I put vehicles out to in front of and behind anybody that we had out protesting in the roads to make sure that no one drove into them. So the militarization, that only tends to aggravate the situation and shouldn't even be brought into place.
And Studi, I just want to say, I mentioned earlier, we did the march in Flushing yesterday. And what Chief Hart is saying is really important, because the Flushing Police Department did not appear for that. They didn't block us. They didn't have a car in front or behind us. They didn't march with us. And when we marched to that police department, there were officers sitting on the lawn with the flag and signs saying we back the badge. So what that says is we're not in support of what you all are trying to say is going on. We stand behind the police no matter what, and so to have somebody running a department that recognizes we're exercising our fundamental and constitutional right to assemble and to rally and to march, and to respect it, to make sure everyone is safe, that's major.
Right. Indeed. Okay, this is the last thing I'm going to say, and then we can end this. I appreciate your time. I know you both are very, very busy, in the fact that you took time out of your day to talk to little old me on my little old podcast. I appreciate you so much. This is really an effort of bridging the gap between not only generations, but just the law and the people. So thank you for this. There are a couple individuals saying something about Clean Slate Initiative. I don't know what that is. Do you guys have any knowledge on what that is?
So what I can tell you, what I would say is, on July 23rd, from 7 to 9 at 2301 North Saginaw, we are going to be having a workshop where we are going to go over the Clean Slate Initiative in detail. And we're actually going to have the gentleman who testified in front of Congress and is the strong proponent of the Clean Slate Initiative. But just real briefly, it takes the expungement process to a whole different level. So right now, in order for a person to get an expungement, you have to have stayed clean for 5 years from the time your case was resolved. So from the time you either finished probation or got out of jail or paid your last fines off, 5 years from that point, then you can request that be removed from your record. And it's still up to the judge at the end of the day. The prosecutor still has a say. And if there was a victim involved, that victim still has a say. So you have two people that could still prevent you from removing your record, even though you demonstrate that you are a completely different person now than you were then. And you can also demonstrate that having that felony on your record hinders your ability to be great. So with this new Clean Slate Initiative, some of the expungements become automatic. to where you don't have to apply for it. As long as you fit the criteria, your
Right.
record will be expunged automatically, and that's major. And it also expands who is eligible for this automatic expungement. So it's just about, expanding the knowledge so you are educated to know whether or not you're going to be able to get rid of this felony or whether you're going to be stuck with it. And so, to find out more about this workshop, they can go to my website at youngforprosecutor.com.
Okay. Y'all remember that. Phil, in closing, what would you like to say to the people?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you, Studi, for having me on, giving me an opportunity, this platform, to speak to everyone. And I would like to let everyone know that, both Trishelle and I have spoken, and I will tell you that we need to clean things up downtown. And the best way to do that is to change what's going on now. And I, for one, that's why I'm out running for sheriff. 20 years of the same old thing has been going on, and it's time for a change. And what we discussed today is just the beginning of what we can do when we get in and have the reins where we can take opportunity to make these changes and to make things better. I think that's the big point, is we're all in this together and we're trying to make things better so that each and every one of us can have a fulfilling experience, a good life, and not have to worry, as Trishelle said, when I look in that rearview mirror and see that those lights behind me, I tighten up, and it shouldn't be that way. And I, for one, am working to change that. You should feel no different than seeing anybody else in the car behind you. You're just going from point A to point B. You know if you've done something, and you don't need
Right.
to worry that someone thinks you're doing something when you're not. So,
Or
again,
be scared
thank
when
you so much.
Yeah.
Yes,
Thank you.
that's right.
I have two questions for you really quickly, and then I'll let you go. I apologize, but these are
right.
some serious questions. Maurice Moore said, Chief Hart, as sheriff, what would you do to dismantle the secret society of police brutality within the county jail? And that right there. I think that's like
All right.
the most important question.
Much like I did when I was jail administrator for 2.5 years, you treat everyone with respect and dignity. There will be no allowance for any mistreatment of anyone. We are not judges. We are not juries. A lot of people, as Trishelle said earlier, are sitting there waiting to have their day in court. So you cannot treat anyone in a fashion less than respectful. And that's the very first thing. If there is any incidents of force used, everyone who is there will write a report. They have a habit of one person writing a report and everyone else just saying, yeah, that's what happened. That is not the case, because you don't know how deeply this runs without having in their words what they're telling you. Now I can then investigate that, look at it, and see, who do I need to discipline? Who do I need to just move right out of here? Who should not be here? Because it is not acceptable practice as it is right now. And the 2.5 years that I spent, we had no lawsuits filed for any sort of abuse while I was there. And I think that's major, and we can certainly get back to that. It's off the hook now. I'm telling you, it's crazy.
I was gonna say, because I'm like, what? There hasn't been. All right, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to let you all go, and I'm going to end the live. But once again, thank you for gracing my show. This is very big for everybody, so I really appreciate your time. Hopefully, we can stay in contact, and I can be a part of some community actions, because I am less about talking and more about doing. So
awesome.
Glad to hear it. Me too.
Thank you so much, Studi. Appreciate you.
And everybody, remember, vote, and vote. And,
absolutely.
That's right.
Yes. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, everybody. As y'all heard, we got some amazing people out here who's ready to make a change. So be out there in August and make a difference. Make a difference with their choice. We can't keep complaining about issues, and then when we have a chance to change it, we don't. So I appreciate each and every one of you who came in and rocked with me. I want to put a special shout out to Motivation and Empowered LLC for bringing these amazing guests together. They help facilitate this panel, and I appreciate them. And so shout out to them. And everybody in the chat, y'all are showing love, and y'all represented this channel right. So I'm going to leave like we always do, with love and light and peace.